Welcome back, everyone, to the Frosty Canucks podcast. I'm your host, Jason, along with Frosty, and we owe our listeners a deep, deep apology.
We were wrong. We were wrong.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy! We're not worthy! We were very, very wrong about the Bethesda deal.
Yeah, we had said that...
In episode 2.
Yeah, in episode 2, that we thought that with the buyout, that Bethesda games would still be coming to other platforms, but Microsoft's big play for pushing, I would say more the Game Pass than the Xbox, but it's neither here nor there.
That's true.
Is that Starfield is going to be day one Game Pass, and it's only available on Microsoft's platform. So you can get it on Game Pass, you can get it on
PC,
you can get it on the Xbox, and I don't know if it's on the new one only, or if it's on the new one and the old one.
We don't know that yet.
Okay, well, it's definitely on the new one.
Yes.
So now I'm not as confident if Fallout and...
So they did say that existing franchises would be looked at on a case-by-case basis, but I mean, if Starfield's enough of a power play...
Starfield is a new IP, so it is like the big... Like, it's Microsoft fundamentally taking their dick out and putting it on the table and wiggling it around. So,
sure.
I still think that Fallout and Elder Scrolls, the next one of those, may surface on the PlayStation platform, but the more time goes by, the less confident I am in that.
I mean, fair enough.
I mean, even leading up to this, I wasn't as surprised by this announcement, because between the time that we recorded episode 2, which was, back in September of last year?
September, October, yeah.
Yeah, and then, like, E3... 2021, there was a number of interviews that were given and a number of, I guess mostly the interviews, and I was reading the articles that were written about those interviews. Looking at the language and what was being said, it was becoming increasingly apparent that it's like, they're probably going to make Starfield exclusive. I'm going to end up being...
Yeah, they bought them for a good reason.
Yeah, I'm going to end up being wrong about what I said back on that episode of the podcast, aren't I? And, yeah, I was. So...
I mean, so was I. Yeah, I considered, like, they'll still go with both. They'll want more money, but...
That's kind of what I figured,
push
but
the system.
Yeah, this is like the big power play from them to be like, oh, okay, well, we still don't have fucking Halo.
No kidding.
We're still struggling to see like a return on any of our, because there's like all their fucking studios or most of their studios rather are still like midstream on development. The only games that they've put out haven't been like the kind of big hitters that maybe they were hoping for.
Well, I think like one of the few exclusives was the Medium, and that's now coming out to the PlayStation.
Yeah. And then, like, the only kind of big exclusive that Microsoft has that's, like, being actively developed is Grounded by Obsidian, where they made, like, the co-op survival game. It's like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, so you play as, like, a tiny person running around a giant backyard. You're, like, shrunk down and everything's big.
Well, they announced that they were gonna do The Outer Worlds 2.
Yeah.
But it's all CGI, and they don't really... It's a Bethesda announcement.
Yeah, they're not very far along on that. Starfield looks like it's coming out, next year? They didn't have anything to show off about that.
Probably late next year, I guess the holiday season, and who knows, it might get pushed.
And, like, Halo's been fumbling for quite a while. I think that, did you hear that they're putting out the multiplayer as, like, free-to-play?
They are doing that as free-to-play.
I think that's extremely smart.
It's free real estate.
Oh, that's the power play, that's for sure. That's going to get a lot of people interested.
Yeah. I know some people are probably going to be angry at me for saying this, but they could probably just drop the single-player campaign entirely. Just put the fucking multiplayer out. Have it be free to play. Make all their money off of the microtransactions. I'm sure it'll do well for them.
Yeah, I just don't know. Like, paying full price for the single-player now just seems kind of just silly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously you get more money if you charge people to get in the gate and then do the microtransactions on top of that. That's what EA always does. But I'm guessing they're confident that the game will be so good that people will pick it up and play it, and they'll keep playing it, and they'll make more money off of having the barrier to entry be basically nothing for this game.
I mean, it's definitely going to be a system seller once production's caught up.
Yeah. It's coming to PC as well, right?
I believe so, yeah.
I think that the fact that it's going to be a free-to-play game is going to be extremely advantageous for the launch of this game. I feel like they are looking at the gaming landscape looks like right now, and they're going, okay, we can't fucking put the multiplayer for this out and charge money for it. Like, Fortnite exists, it's extremely popular,
yeah,
it's
I was
free.
Just gonna say,
Apex Legends is free.
Fortnite.
These are the games they're competing with fundamentally. You can't come out here and be like, oh, we're going to charge full price for a multiplayer experience. If you do that, you're extremely arrogant, or it's an extremely brash move to do. I know EA is still doing it, but, you know, I like Call of Duty, but people fucking buy Call of Duty like the goddamn religion for some people, right? So
Call of Duty 50. I don't know. The Microsoft had a strong showing this year.
their conference was a little slow, but I didn't actually watch it. That's kind of the reaction I got from a lot of people. I read about it after the fact, and I was like, okay, this is a nice set of announcements. It sounds like Microsoft will have stuff in the future. Don't really have anything right now, but
It helped when they combined two good shows into like essentially a great show.
yeah, having Bethesda there was really advantageous for them. Speaking of, because this is like the post E3 episode, you actually want to like get into what our like kind of favorite announcements were from E3?
Sure. Yeah. You know what? We'll start with what I considered the second best showing, the Nintendo one.
That's fair. Just for context for listeners, we had a Discord call going as we were watching it together because it happened during our like lunch break. I like doing that for E3. I didn't get to do that for many of the conferences, but it was nice that Nintendo's was during the week, so I wasn't inundated with crap on the weekend.
Well, it was your birthday weekend, so...
Yeah, except I didn't get to spend it doing anything I wanted, which was not spending time with other people.
Never is.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a very social guy.
Only in the pandemic.
Yeah, well, we kind of like came out of major lockdown, so everyone's like, oh, I want to see you. I haven't seen you in forever, and it's your birthday. And I'm like, God damn it, I just wanted to spend the weekend alone with Miranda, just, like playing fucking video games, watching Netflix, not having to interact with people who I don't necessarily have anything to say to, like...
Even after all this time.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get along great with my fucking sisters, so... Anyway, Nintendo.
Yes, Nintendo. I was very happy to see Shin Megami Tensei 5. I know it's turn-based.
I bet you were. There's a lot of... It's not turn-based combat that I hate. It's just that when Japanese people implement it in games, they always make it the worst. Sweeping statement there. I know a lot of people who are big JRPG enthusiasts who are... At least if you're already familiar with Shin Megami Tensei, I assume that you were really excited about the announcement because it also came with a date.
November 12th for the West, 11th for Japan. They get it one day early, but that's rare.
Yeah. Listener of the show, Maz, was pretty excited about it. And I know some people who are just like big JRPG fans and they saw this game and were like, oh, I didn't really know that much about this, but now I am at least, somewhat interested in it. So having that nice kind of long...
I mean, visually speaking, it's looked the best because the last major entry came out on the 3DS. So it's quite a step up.
Yeah, that is for sure.
I mean, I don't really know the meat and potatoes of the game. There was a few extra trailers, and who is it that said that the Japanese Nintendo Direct had a longer showing of Shin Megami Tensei 5?
I don't actually know.
But apparently that was a thing.
I could see that. I bet it's because I assume they were the same show, and so I think
you were the one that told me that.
Maybe I saw a tweet about it. Actually, now you said that, I'm pretty sure I'm the one who told you about that. I'm having a moment here. But yeah, I thought they were the same show until someone said that, and I'm like, oh god, like that 5-minute in the middle like trailer for Shin Megami Tensei that I was like, oh, this is clearly here for like the Eastern audience, not the Western audience. It was actually no, the version of the Direct we saw was actually tailored for the Western audience. So it's like, holy shit. They went even more like balls to the walls on marketing it in their Japanese presentation.
I mean, it's big there, so.
Yeah, it is. It is the series that Persona spun off from, and I gotta assume if Persona's did as well as it did with this last release, there's some people who are going to look at this game and be like, oh, hey, I wanted to try out the games in the franchise that like are responsible for Persona.
It helps that a HD remaster of 3 came out this year. So that's probably gotten a bit more interest in people and like, oh, what's the latest one? Oh my god, it looks like insanely better than 3 and 4.
Yeah. So you planning
on... the demon designs look good. I want to, but apparently... I think it was the gamer with glasses. He was stating that, like, oh, the pre-orders are all fucked up at the moment.
Oh, okay.
I guess for the Steelbook version, or even just the normal version, like, it's hard to pre-order this shit.
God damn it.
I'm like, oh, and I look at Amazon, I'm like, where, not here. Fuck. Never mind. No. I'll wait.
Yeah, maybe try and pick it up digitally or something. It's just on the Switch, right? It's
just on the Switch. Who knows if it'll be console exclusive forever.
Yeah, I assume you're going to be able to pick it up on the Switch, like digitally at release. And if you can't find it on Amazon, it's not like you're going to get a discount, so...
Yeah, but if I don't like it, I mean, and I'll probably like it, but if I don't like it...
Oh, I guess, yeah, there's no refund if it's digital.
Yeah.
or way to sell it afterwards.
Damn you, Nintendo Digital.
What's even worse with Nintendo for pre-orders is that you can't, after a certain day, cancel your pre-order. They just take your money and they won't give it back.
Yeah, you damage your Switch and it's like, well, I can't play on this. Well, tough shit, man.
Yeah, basically.
Shouldn't have left that Switch near a puddle. I don't know.
Fucking... I can't believe I'm imagining this drift issue.
Oh my goodness. I cannot believe it.
Aside from SMT, I gotta say that 'cause it's very hard for me to say the actual full name of it because my tongue it only speaks English.
Shin Megami Tensei.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad at it. What other games stood out to you from Nintendo stuff?
Nintendo skipped Metroid Prime 4 for Metroid Dread.
Yeah,
That was pretty fucking funny. 5. I was like, what? They're announcing 5 after 4, and I'm not much of a Metroid guy, so I was really very confused for a bit.
I was not confused. I was very excited when it was announced, and then like 10 minutes later, I was thinking to myself, this game's going to be $80 Canadian.
I sent it to you later.
Yeah, and then you sent it to me later and showed me that it's $80 Canadian, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I can stomach that price. So people are wondering why. I kind of explained this in one of Ian Adventure Rules streams last week. I don't know if I did it in the most eloquent way possible, but I have a very hard time reconciling the idea of spending $80 Canadian before tax on a game when Hollow Knight exists and is $15. Well, I guess $17 Canadian, but...
And goes on sale regularly.
Yeah, well, just like Hollow Knight, to me, like I would pay like $40 or $50 Canadian for that game. For me, is like the best Metroidvania ever created.
It's content rich.
Yeah, it's extremely content rich. And then it had like a bunch of DLC updates that were free as well. So when you have Nintendo coming up in here and being like, ah yes, pay $80 for this game. And I'm like, Nintendo, you haven't released a half-decent Metroid game in over a decade. And the last several Metroid games I played were extremely derivative of each other. I don't have the confidence as a consumer to like pick that game up at full price, the price they're asking for it, and pay that when there's like a bunch of, like hypothetically, if like indie games weren't out here, you know, kicking Nintendo's ass, maybe I would buy it out of desperation, but there's like a ton of indie games out. Oh, hello, Chives. There's a ton of indie games out there right now that have been kicking Nintendo's ass on Metroidvanias for like the better part of the last 10 years. And I don't trust that Nintendo has...
Yeah, they needed to release this like in the 2000s.
Yeah, like I don't trust that they have the gumption or the ability to one-up these indie developers. My thought is that like this game's going to be like an extremely overpriced game and be kind of mediocre compared to a lot of the waves we've seen made by the indie scene over the last decade, especially in the Metroidvania scene. Like Metroidvanias are so overdone to the point where some people are just tired of hearing anytime a game is like announced or described as a Metroidvania, people are just like, ugh, another one. Yeah,
exactly.
There is. There's like a ton of developers that have made great Metroidvanias out there. I mean, like I have varying opinions on different ones, but like just to name a few, like Hollow Knight's obviously one of them. Guacamelee, I'm not as big on Ori, but I know a lot of people really like both of the Ori games. Sorry, let me just bring up my Steam library. I have an entire subsection dedicated to Metroidvania style games.
Yeah, I enjoyed Guacamelee 1 and 2. They were really good.
Axiom
games.
Verge, Bloodstained, even though I wasn't huge on that one. Gato Roboto, Environmental Station Alpha, Iconoclasts, Indivisible. I know some people would disagree with me on this, but I kind of think the Tomb Raider games are kind of like them, especially Rise and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. SteamWorld's Dig 1 and 2, Time Splitter, Worlds of the West, Yaku's Island Express, the Shantae games.
Mm-hmm.
There are varying degrees of quality there, but, you know, none of those games, except for the Shadow of the Tomb Raider and like the Tomb Raider games, that costed a AAA price. And even then, it's like, well, all of them go on sale, and all of them provide unique and compelling experiences in their own ways that kind of do Metroidvania sort of exploration stuff and getting power gradually over a period of time and seeing your character kind of improve and explore new areas and stuff. So yeah, I'm just not sure that Nintendo can offer something that is truly unique, truly worth the price tag that they're going to charge for the game.
I mean, ideally, that Nintendo would just be pricing this at like $50 is kind of like a...
If they put this down as a $40 game, so like a $50, $55 game Canadian, no question, I'd fucking buy it. I just don't have the confidence in them, and I think that there's other games out there that for a lower price point have offered a better experience than anything Nintendo's ever put out. I know some people are going to get very upset about me for that because everyone holds like Super Metroid as the fucking like end all and be all, but Axiom Verge is fundamentally Super Metroid, but it costs like $20 Canadian.
Yeah, and Axiom Verge 2 is coming out at some point.
Yeah, so like the Axiom Verge is so close to Super Metroid that it's almost indistinguishable from Super Metroid, and it's a game that costs like almost nothing compared to AAA games. So it's like, how do you come out here and ask for $80 for a game? Well, it's because it's a AAA game, and that's what AAA games cost. That's not a good enough reason.
No,
I don't
it
think.
isn't a good enough reason. I agree too.
I liked what I saw. I thought it was a really exciting announcement. I don't think I can buy it.
Fair enough. I've not played any of the Metroid games, so I don't... Like, I was really excited for fans, because this is a very nice, surprising announcement, but...
Fundamentally, they put out Metroid 1 on the NES. It's like a good prototype of what would become the genre staple. And then they had the one on the Game Boy, which was improved graphically, but stripped back in some other areas, like the exploration, specifically because it was on a Game Boy. It's extremely
Yes.
linear. And then Super Metroid, which is the third game, was on Super Nintendo. And that is like, you take everything from the first game and you apply the better graphics to it and you clean up a lot of stuff and refine it. And that's why everyone's like, oh man, Super Metroid is the best one. And then every game that came after that is extremely derivative of Super Metroid. Almost identical power-ups. You get them in almost exactly the same order. The enemies are basically mostly the same. The environments
Can I
are
copy
very
your
similar.
homework? Yes, it's my homework.
If you think it's bad how many games have like copied Super Metroid, think about how many times Metroid has copied Super Metroid.
I mean, if the formula works, the formula works.
That's true, but there's something to be said for having the ability to recognize why people like your game and to iterate upon that in a way that makes the games feel meaningfully different from one another and distinct. I know Mario gets a lot of shit, but Nintendo does a great job with making the Mario games, for the most part, feel like their own distinct entry from one another. The new Super Mario Bros. Series of games, not so much, but everything else usually feels radically different from release to release to release. Zelda, to a lesser extent, does as well, but Metroid is it's the same game over and over again and over again. Star Fox is kind of in the same boat. Like, Nintendo just has no idea what to do with those games in terms of like how to make new ideas and iterate on them and
Use the gamepad. that was their big gimmick for Zero.
Yeah, which is how you end
I
up
feel
with...
bad that was the last game
Yeah, well, that's
for
what it
Star
is.
Fox.
But yeah, there's a lot of people who are very excited about it. There's a lot of people who have heard about Metroid and never played one before, who are like, oh, I'm going to play one because I have a Switch and I've never heard about this before, but people seem to like it a lot, so that's good. That's cool.
Yeah, speaking of old-ass games, Advanced Wars.
Oh my god, that's
1 and 2 got the reboot camp thing.
that is
It's another game where we both agree that the price is
highway robbery.
bad.
It's highway robbery. That's what I was looking for.
It's another $80 Canadian game.
Yeah, that game shouldn't have a AAA price. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. That game should not have a AAA price. It's 2 remastered games where all they've done is
Change the visual style.
and redo it with like a new engine. That's it. It's going to be the same broken ass AI. It's going to be the same kind of shitty encounters. I actually like Advance Wars 2. For me, Advance Wars is like a growing the beard franchise, if you're familiar with that saying. I think that's how that saying goes.
I don't know.
It's like a TV tropes thing. The idea is that it's like one of the Star Treks, the first season was kind of Garbo, and then like the main commander guy grew his beard out in the second season, and then it was like way better. So the saying like growing the beard or growing the beard out is supposed to refer to like when the first version of like the first season or first iteration of something is dog shit, and then like the sequel is immediately like a million times better. In regard to Advance Wars, I would say that the first game is fine, but the second game is way better. And then like Dual Strike is also really good, and I don't own the final one, and I've never played the campaign all the way through, but everything I've played of Days of Ruin pointed toward it being the best game in the entire franchise, and unfortunately it was like one of the worst selling ones.
I never picked that one up.
I didn't either. I've only ever played it because in college a buddy of mine and I got really into playing Advance Wars. So in class we were playing Advance Wars over an emulator. We were supposed to be paying attention in our business classes. And then in our free time, he brought his 3DS and we'd play Days of Ruin. And I like Days of Ruin so much better because they completely like reworked how the Fog of War worked in that game. So it was like really, really involved and really, really, really good and integral to your strategy. which is a big part of why I'm like a huge boner for Fog of War in these types of games, because I feel like the information asymmetry helps to make certain units that you wouldn't use a lot of the time more valuable because they have increased vision. Because there's some units that are like completely worthless, except for the fact that they have really good vision. So like factoring that
the
in.
tanks can only see like 1 or 2 ahead, but then like the rocket launcher or something like that can see like 3.
No, the rocket launchers are fucking blind. You have to pair rocket launchers with recon units or with infantry units that are on mountains so that they can see around them.
Okay, I might be mixing up It's been a while.
But like there, it's like, okay, if you're just playing in like not Fog of War, after a certain point, you have almost no reason to carry infantry around. But if you're playing in Fog of War, infantry are one of the best units that you can have because they help to give you so much vision when you place them on mountains. Recon are similarly, like they're complete dog shit in a normal match. Like there's absolutely zero reason to ever build a recon unit, but they have 5 vision range or 4 vision range, one of the two. So they're super useful, especially for making your powerful ranged units very useful in Fog of War. I don't think they should be charging as much as they are for it, and what's really shitty, and I saw Jet from In Third Person, he put out I guess he didn't put out a video, it was like, he said it on one of his live streams, and then he cut it into a video that he shared on social media. Fundamentally, he's afraid that they're going to redo 1 and 2, if it sells well, they're going to redo Dual Strike, and then if that sells well, they're going to redo Days of Ruin, and then everyone's going to be tired of it again, and then it's just going to go back, and you're going to see a repeat of what happened before, where they redo it, there's interest, but then they don't iterate on it and they don't do anything new with it. And because they don't refuse to do anything new with it to help evolve it, to keep it fresh, it's going to do the same thing they did last time, where it was fundamentally like they released the same game kind of over and over and over again. And when they did make iterations on the franchise, like with Days of Ruin, it was so late that no one cared.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree that's probably what's going to happen. Or it's just going to be like a one-off thing and it's not going to sell well because a bunch of other people are going to look at it and turn their nose up to it because of the price like I did.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm sticking away from it, and I've still got my copy of 2.
Yeah, so do I. So I can, and then like I can borrow Dual Strike from Will. So
well, there you go.
Yeah, like I said, 1 is not worth replaying. I'm sorry, fans of Advanced War of 1.
2 is much better.
Yeah, 2 is way better. 2 improved so many things. Specifically, the AI cheats a whole hell of a lot less. It's a big deal for Fog of War encounters.
Breath of the Chungus 2.
That was a big nothing
gameplay.
Trailer.
Got people hyped.
Yeah, well, they showed off basically nothing. It's like, oh, it's Breath of the Wild 2. You already know what this is.
I mean, after them just being like, we have nothing to show for Breath of the Wild 2, they were probably like,
gotcha, bitch.
Yeah, we can't play that again.
Yeah.
From their last direct.
Goddamn, people were so salty about that shit. Speaking of things people were salty about, I fucking laughed my ass off when Kazuya from Tekken was announced as like the next Smash DLC fighter. I only realized it like half a second before they zoomed in on his face because I recognized his gloves after he whipped Ganondorf into the volcano.
Yeah, he killed everyone but Kirby.
Yeah, that's like an in joke from the franchise, so I'm guessing a lot of people didn't realize that. So in Tekken, Kazuya's father, Heihachi, when he's like a little baby, he like kicks him off a mountain, and he's like, if he's really my son, he will show his power by climbing back up the mountain. And then he does. And then throughout the story mode on like several occasions, it's just like Heihachi and Kazuya whipping each other off of mountains in defiance of one another. It's very funny. In Tekken 7, which is the only one that I've actually played, that's where Heihachi is like finally dead. They finally let the voice actor for him retire. He unfortunately actually passed away, I believe, shortly before the game actually came out, so that was actually pretty unfortunate. But in the game's story, Kazuya finally like has like a duel to the death with Heihachi and wins, and then whips him into a volcano, which is why he was like whipping people into a volcano specifically in this particular reveal trailer. I did also think it was pretty funny how most of the series they were, like, the characters they were whipping into the thing, I don't know if you noticed this, were mostly Nintendo's, like, Dead series.
Yeah, no kidding. Other than Ganondorf.
Well, yeah, so they put Ganondorf in there. I think that was very deliberately as, like, a Breath of the Wild cock tease.
Yeah, me too.
And then people got super salty in the live stream. Holy shit, the live chat went wild after that happened. Not in a good way. And then it was like Captain Falcon and then ARMS, which unfortunately, like, ARMS wasn't super well received.
And then Pit was there as well.
Yeah, although I think Pit was there because Sakurai has well, maybe it was just all a bunch of series that Sakurai has some personal attachment to, because he's got personal attachment to Pit. Wasn't he responsible for bringing Pit back and also directing the Kid Icarus game?
I never played it, and I didn't really have any interest of that, so...
Okay, and then Kirby is his baby, so...
I mean, you can't kill Kirby.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Sakurai created, like, Kirby as a character, and, like, Kirby's Dream Land was, like, one of his first games that he made at HAL Laboratory. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that is the case, which is why he always includes Kirby in his different, like, I don't know if you noticed this, but Kirby's in a lot of the Smash trailers, and that's probably why.
I mean, he's a beloved mascot character as well.
Yeah, but he's also Sakurai's character.
All right.
But yeah, I didn't have any thoughts on that aside from the fact that I was like, oh yeah, I'm not really surprised at this point they've actually got representation for every major Japanese fighting game that Sakurai would have grown up playing in the arcades aside from BlazBlue. I don't know if there's plans for him to try and, if he wants to like try and get one of the ArcSys characters into the game.
I mean, at this point, it's just like, he'll just ask and go, all your other friends have done so.
Yeah.
Come join the party.
Get Eno and from Guilty Gear into fucking Smash Brothers. That'd be cool. Or that dolphin character.
They have enough sway at this point to do that.
Possibly. I got a feeling, though, the last character is going to be somebody that Nintendo wants specifically for marketing purposes. I don't know which character that's going to be, but...
Another sword character.
Oh, definitely. Another anime sword character. Fucking, what game did they put out that doesn't have a character in it, like, from Smash in it yet? Because ARMS was, like, the big one that I was like, okay, they're going to add an ARMS character eventually. They have to.
Banjo-Kazooie, maybe?
Well, they did that already. They put Banjo in.
No, I know. I meant...
I'm talking like, what game have they put out that they don't have a character that they would want to advertise? Because that's fundamentally what, like, half the characters they put in for.
Advanced Wars.
Yeah, they'll put in fucking, like, Max from Advanced Wars will just sit on people.
Just gets in a tank.
Yeah, for his final smash.
No, that's just one of his normal moves.
Oh, this is one of his moves, is it?
That's the projectile one, except it's slow. And when he wants to shoot really from far away, he just spawns the air artillery or something like that.
Oh my god, that'd be hilarious. If, like, all of his special moves spawned in, like, a little...
Vehicles, yeah.
Yeah, and then he, like, attacked from them or whatever. That'd be goofy as hell.
I don't know, we're giving Nintendo ideas.
Oh, it's not going to be Advanced Wars, come on. Was there anything else from the Nintendo showcase? I feel like we've covered most of the big announcements.
Those were the big ones.
Yeah.
You know what, let's get into some chaos.
I'm here to kill chaos. Looks like chaos. I want to kill chaos.
I only saw, like, people screaming about chaos on Twitter. And I didn't know what the hell they were talking about because I was at a barbecue at my sister's house during the Square Enix presentation.
And I didn't watch the Square Enix presentation live. I saw it afterwards, or some of the announcements, so I was very confused as well. Twitter just going, chaos! I'm like, Sonic?
Yeah.
Maybe?
No.
No.
I've since seen a video by Donkey summarizing E3, and I think that he puts it really well, where he's like, ah yes, like last year Square showed off a trailer where I didn't feel secondhand embarrassment for RPG fans after watching it.
For Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah, but they rectified that with this year's E3, and he just showed like a couple of snippets from the, what is it, Final Fantasy Origins is the name of it?
Something like Stranger in Paradise, something like that.
Yeah, it's one of the most cringy things. I didn't even see the whole thing.
I'm here to kill chaos. I want to do only one thing.
Kill chaos. Yeah, it's fucking stupid.
Did you say chaos? The Chaos Emeralds?
I'm sorry, Final Fantasy fans, but this is the kind of garbage that is why I have zero respect for this franchise.
I mean, fair enough. When I saw it, I think I showed my wife that. She was just like, can we delete Final Fantasy?
Yeah.
Please? I'm like...
At least there was no anime grunting in the trailer.
Yeah, I think you're right. There wasn't.
There'll be anime grunting in the game.
Stay away from that.
But there'll be no anime grunting in the trailers.
So, for anyone who knows not put off by that, essentially it's Final Fantasy's attempt at like that with a Neo style, because it's from Team Ninja, and combat is going to be action RPG focused, where you can use magic and you can do the attacks, and it'll probably be like kind of punishing like Neo is. But you do have party members in this one. Apparently the director really wanted to hone in on the angry man who wants to destroy chaos. He wanted this to be a story about an angry man.
Okay.
I have many questions for this director.
Okay.
Like, why?
Give him a wife beer can in one of his hands, and put a mega hat on him.
The guy doesn't look like he fits into the Final Fantasy universe.
No, he looks like a fucking Trump supporter.
It's very confusing. Final Fantasy is very confusing. I'm hoping 16 is much better and focused
I'm sorry
on the medieval setting.
to
Please,
anyone
oh,
who's offended by what I just said, but it's fucking take the joke. Like, come on.
Yeah, he's out of office.
He looks like a fucking angry white guy. Like, is like the most generic looking guy. Yeah, that's fucking hilarious.
Yeah. And the other big ticket item was
Guardians of the
Marvel's
Galaxy?
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Where you
Yeah,
fight Jello
that one.
cubes.
Yeah, Jello cubes. That was definitely not a good way to sell that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what did you think of the trailer? Because I thought the game looked fucking lame.
It looks like it's just an extension of Marvel's Avengers, which it kind of is.
Yeah.
It did say it's going to be single player only, no microtransactions.
Yeah, well, it's because they completely fucking screwed the pooch with Avengers.
Yeah, which we're going to talk about shortly on the other little thing about Avengers lately.
Do you want to cut over to the Avengers stuff briefly, and then we can get back to the E3 stuff?
Alright, fuck it, yeah.
Since we brought it up.
Yeah.
We're doing a side tangent here with some news, but go on.
So, the latest patch of Marvel's Avengers, there was quite the security bug included in that. So, it revealed people's IP addresses. So, if you decided to stream the game or share screenshots of the game and weren't paying close attention, in like the bottom corner, your IP address would be present. Their tweet, when people were screaming at them for that, was, "We're aware of the issue, where a floating string of text appears on the screen and are investigating. Thank you for the reports." And then followed by, a little bit later, "Please refrain from streaming until the issue is fixed tomorrow," essentially.
Yeah.
It was apparently there for about 24 hours before a hotfix was applied.
I don't know how the fuck that got missed. That's kind of a huge deal.
I mean, this is the company that put out the Hulk being disgruntled grunt.
Yeah, disgruntled grunt, the fucking text-to-speech.
Text-to-speech, yeah.
Oh my god. That at least is funny and not like, that doesn't harm anyone, right? Like having your IP
That's
address
true.
leaked out,
No shit.
that's potentially problematic. Granted, most people are on dynamic IPs, so it's not like a huge deal, but, you know, if you're live streaming and you don't know this fucking game has like
That's still terrifying.
Yeah. So that's fun.
Fucking Marvel's Avengers, the biggest punching bag ever.
That's not the biggest punching bag ever. That's Fallout 76. This is the second biggest punching bag.
I feel like Fallout 76 has at least gained some goodwill back, but...
That's because people were too willing to give Bethesda goodwill back. That game should have never, ever recovered. That game was awful at launch. Like, good lord. People just forgot all the fucking issues that it had.
Yeah, we have goldfish memory.
Basically.
What were we talking about? Oh yeah.
Precisely.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
See, I don't know. I thought that game looked like a generic-ass
Oh yeah.
Jiminy Cockthroat style game, so I have no interest in playing it.
I might be interested if it goes down to $20.
That's fair.
I mean, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies they're really entertaining.
Yeah, they're really good, but
So I'm hoping they can kind of capture the same magic, maybe with the single player campaign. And it looks like you can actually do a little bit of like choice variation with the story. So
I don't know.
maybe there's something there.
None of the people who make the movie as good as it is are involved with this game, so I have zero
true.
expectations. Well, I guess that's not true. I expect this to be kind of bland.
I mean, at least it's not a live service.
That's true. God damn, when you're complimenting a game for not immediately being a piece of shit. Like, what has the world come to?
There's too many pieces of shit.
Alright, what's next on the agenda for E3 related stuff?
I mean, those are the bigger ones. I'm sure we're missing a lot because there was a lot of stuff announced. But...
Don't care or whatever. I guess for like a holistic type thing, what were like the big chungus announcements that really got your PP rock hard from E3?
I was happy to see that Plague Tale has got a sequel in the works.
I would expect it. You
'Cause I
were,
really liked that game. Plague Tale Requiem. Unfortunately, it's just a CGI trailer. Or, well, it said it was in-game, but...
In-engine!
It didn't really...
That doesn't
in-engine,
mean
but it didn't really say
shit.
it. Yeah, it means nothing. It is the same characters, so it's not like it's a separate story. So it is continuing their adventures, so I'm quite surprised. Because it did, for the most part, wrap up pretty nicely with Innocence. They are putting out a patch for newer consoles for like the 4K textures and stuff.
Ah, okay.
And that's all free. That's kind of cool. I expect with what they're doing with Requiem, it's kind of going to be the same engine and they're just cleaning stuff up.
Probably.
So, cool. I'm happy about that. Psychonauts 2, I'm glad that's
Yeah, that looks
looking
cool.
like it's finally coming out. Yeah, I'm really happy that that's finally gonna see the light of day. I played one, I think like 2 or 3 years ago, and it was like I was really surprised about how good it was, even after
Yeah, it's like a
how
decade
long
old
after
now,
it
isn't
came
it?
out.
Probably more than that now.
I feel like it's more than that. Let me look up the date. The first Psychonauts game came out in 2005.
Okay, it's not quite a decade. Or wait, hold on. It's 20.
Yes, a decade.
It's almost 2025.
A decade and a half.
It's almost been 2 decades. Never mind.
It's getting to 2 decades.
I don't know how to do math. Clearly.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. I hope that they can recapture the magic. Sure, with how much time they've spent, they've really been trying to do that.
Probably.
I think it's like one of the few last things that's going to come out from Double Fine on everything before it's Xbox, Microsoft only.
Yeah, that game was probably too far along for them to be like, wow, let's just not do a PlayStation release. It's like, okay, hold on, this is stupid. Like, we're not going to...
Yeah, no kidding.
We're like 99% of the way through. We're not going to drop this SKU.
Microsoft, you got to buy someone else. That's how they reached their conclusion for Bethesda.
Yeah, maybe.
Those are the bigger games I was interested in.
Any kind of indie games that you caught your eye? Or?
Yeah, Tunic I've been interested in for a long time. Apparently that's coming out with a new demo.
I played the last demo that it had out at one of the fucking game festivals they had on Steam last year. It was alright.
Yeah, I think this one has a bit more meat to it this time, because it has been 2 or so years since their last showing. So yeah, it's for anyone who's listening, it's a Legend of Zelda-like game where you play as a fox.
I was gonna say, it's Dark Souls, but you play as a fox.
Yes, and it's Dark Souls-esque. Save at like a sort of a rest point, then all the enemies respawn back in.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't really think there's much of a difference between Zelda and Dark Souls. I know some people would get very angry at hearing me say that, but
Fair enough.
they have a lot in common.
Yeah, fair enough, now that I'm thinking about it.
But yeah, it's called Tunic because you run around as a fox in a tunic. It's got very slow, weighty, deliberate combat, but you spend a lot of time exploring in between that combat. At least that's what happened when I played the demo. And then I got to a boss who could like 2-shot me. So, you know,
Yes.
it's like Dark Souls.
Yeah. Somerville looks interesting by New Studios' first game, Jump Ship.
Okay.
It's apparently from the co-founder
I was gonna say,
Play Dead.
Let's dial back that new studio a little bit, because it's from... So, the story on that is that the 2 founders of Playdead got in a disagreement, so the one bought out the other one. The other one went and created a studio called Jump Ship. After he jumped ship... and this is the game that he has developed after leaving, and it's been, let's say, 3 or 4 years since that happened, so obviously been putting that time to good use.
Yeah, and it looks good. More or less just looks like an extension of what Inside was doing, except this time I think what like Inside was missing for me was sort of like a purpose or a driving factor, and I think like the family focus, because you get to play as like this family that's escaping from essentially aliens that will want to kill you, like through this puzzle action adventure game. So I think that will drive me a little bit more than like Inside did, where I think Inside was just like, what the hell is up with this world? This is all weird and shit.
Yeah, Limbo had the exact same problem.
Mm-hmm.
Both of their games were moody, platformy adventure games. The storytelling is very abstracted. I would say that Limbo is actually not a great game because of it. I haven't played Inside because I wasn't exactly impressed by Limbo, so I wasn't willing to give Inside a crack.
Inside's okay.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, I don't need to really kind of check it out then.
But yeah, I feel like this one has at least a little bit more of a driving factor for me.
Yeah, okay, that's cool.
At least from the trailer.
Yeah.
I guess the last one I was really interested in, I only found out about this one today, is Serial Cleaners.
Oh, I actually played Serial Cleaner the first.
I played the first as well.
I thought it was okay. I didn't know if I would want to play a direct sequel, but I know Thomas really liked it when he played it.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. It was like a fresh experience because you're essentially cleaning up for the serial murders.
Yeah.
That have happened, and you have to get rid of like the evidence, the blood, and then the bodies, and you have to avoid the police or like civilians in the area so that you don't get caught.
It's a neat premise, I will say that.
Yeah, it's a very neat premise. Mostly you just have to get rid of like, I think, a certain amount of the blood, and then like the bodies and the evidence, those are the key ones, but you can go for like 100%ing the level by getting rid of all the blood.
Yeah, I think it was like 75 to 90% of the blood in every level, and then you had to get rid of,
Okay.
I want to say every body and every piece of evidence, but that might not be true.
No, I'm pretty sure it was almost everything, because you were essentially going to get rid of the crime.
Yeah, fundamentally. You just can make it look like a kind of gross accident that happened.
I mean, it's been a while since their first game, and they look like they're doing substantial upgrades, so...
Yeah, that's cool.
Happy about that. Any indies that caught your eye?
A few, most of them I kind of played or saw on Steam. I'll just cover a few of them on here. Tinykin, it's Pikmin, but not. So, similar to kind of what I was saying before, is that there's like a ton of indie games out here where developers were inspired by things like Nintendo games. They're like, hey, I'm going to iterate on these ideas with a fresh perspective and deliver something unique and interesting that Nintendo is either too scared or not smart enough to come up with themselves. And I'm going to sell it for a fucking fraction of the price. Looked at that and I'm like, this is just Pikmin. I will definitely check this out because I really liked Pikmin. It was a very unique take on real-time strategy, specifically for a console kind of market. Plus, I always like the trope of being small and exploring like the regular world, but because you're so small, everything is contextually very different.
Yeah, I saw the trailer for that. That looked neat.
Yeah. Wizard with a Gun, that's one I believe that Devolver Digital is publishing. It started as a meme. The developers were like, what would happen if Gandalf in Lord of the Rings had a gun? And then they developed an entire game about it. It looked like a kind of like a roguelike.
Oh, he said the word.
Exactly, they said the word. Everyone, mark your bingo cards. Which is kind of like the big thing that got me, but like the visual style of it all, kind of the big thing that attracted me. I feel like I need to find out a little bit more about the game. So like it caught my attention enough to have it earmarked for later. I don't know if I'd buy it. I need to kind of figure out some more stuff about it. Toem, which I actually played a demo for and wrote about on frostylate.ca. It's like one of those like wholesome, relaxing styles of games where you just like wander around and people are like, hey, I have these things that I would like done. You do them by taking pictures of stuff. It was a really fun demo to just like fart around with and take pictures and like solve the different requests that people had. I don't think it'll be a super long game. I don't expect it to really change my perception of the adventure game genre, but from what I played of it, it was pretty alright fun, and it had a nice sense of humor to it. It wasn't trying to be funny, it just was funny because of how charming it was at times, so that was pretty cool. I guess I'll cover one AAA game. There was one AAA game, aside from Metroid, that I was like, oh, this looks like it might be interesting. The only caveat would be that it's a 4-player game, so I would need other people to play it with me. There was like 4 different Left 4 Dead clones at E3 this year. I'm not super interested in most of them, but one of them is being developed by Arcane. The trailer confused the hell out of me, but later some friends told me it was Left 4 Dead but with vampires and you have superpowers, and I'm like, oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, I was wondering which clone you were talking about.
Yeah, I think Redfall's the name of it.
Yes.
And yeah, I don't know, I like me some Arcane games. Like, I am a fan of like PvE shooters. Lesser known fact that before I spent all of my time playing Monster Hunter, Vermintide the first and Vermintide the second are games that I played the shit out of with Will. With Vermintide specifically, the year that I bought it, so I think I bought it after it came out. I think it came out in 2015. So in 2016, Will and I played Vermintide on and off the entire year. And then Vermintide 2, when that came out, we played it for like a solid 5 or 6 weeks straight. Vermintide, the original, was a little bit less loot focused and a little bit less grindy. So we liked it a lot better because we could like kind of pop in and then try beating like a bunch of the levels on the harder difficult, like the next level up, and like slowly get better as we got that itch to go play some more Vermintide. Where with Vermintide 2, it felt like it was just a giant loot treadmill and it was very artificial, and neither of us liked that kind of thing. So we basically got our characters to what was like the max level at the time and had the max gear level at the time, and then we're both like, I'm bored of this at around the exact same time, and we never went back to it. So we actually played Vermintide 2 for a much longer stretch of contiguous time than we ever played Vermintide for, but we both had a much better experience playing Vermintide throughout the entirety of 2016 than we had playing Vermintide 2 back in 2018, I want to say. But yeah, so I would not mind playing another 4-player PvE shootery type game. I don't actually mind those that much. I'm not big on if they're super loot focused, which Vermintide 2 was. I prefer maybe having like some daily quests or whatever. But like for me, the bigger thing is having the ability to just play the levels over and over and over again and like get better at them over time with the rising difficulty curve that exists in those games. So Back for Blood also looked interesting. That one's actually being developed by Turtle Rock, so the guys who made Left 4 Dead. But I'm a little bit more partial to Arcane.
I mean, they also made Evolve, so...
I liked Evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you knew that already.
Yeah, I just mean, like, the last one was a little bit of a...
Yeah, Evolve was the first time they tried to do something radically different, and if it weren't for the fact that they've made it basically a free-to-play game and then charged $60 for it, like, honest to God, if they'd released it as a free-to-play game, I bet Evolve would not have been anywhere near as of a failure as it was. I don't know that it would have been a success, because I don't think the asymmetric multiplayer games ever have been a really successful venture for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it would have flopped even remotely as bad as it did if it was a free-to-play game.
They'd probably have a smaller player base still, but...
Yeah, well, it would have. It would not have. I don't think it would have just been dead on arrival, is the thing.
Well, when you come out with $160 with downloadable content on day one of your $60 game.
Well, and the other thing that's stupid is that I think on a previous podcast episode, actually, I played it when it went free to play on Steam and they were like changing the game up.
And you were like, oh, this is awesome. But then you were like, oh, wait, this is the core experience.
Yeah. So I have brought this up before then. Yeah. So it was like, they hadn't changed any of like how the perk unlocks or character unlocks or any of that shit worked. And it was super grindy like a free to play game. And that's how it was in the full fucking priced game when you bought it, which is completely unacceptable. So it was like,
yep.
The entire game was designed like a free-to-play game, but it wasn't free-to-play, which is mind-boggling. That I don't know who made that decision, but they have the big dumb.
I don't know, someone at Take-Two. I think that was the publisher.
Yeah, probably. So yeah, that was kind of E3 from my end.
All right, now that we've discussed a lot about E3, we're going to get into the games we've been playing. Did you want to briefly talk about some of the demos we played?
Sure. My list this week is a little bit lighter, but that's entirely because I played some demos this past week. So they had another summer
Next Fest.
Yeah, they call it Next Fest. It's basically just like a fucking
demo reel.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like PAX but digital. There was kind of 4 games from that I played that I really enjoyed, and I wrote an article about it on frostylite.ch. Go read it. I already talked about Tome, that was one of them. They Always Run was another one. It's like an action-y platformer type thing. You play as a bounty hunter. The levels seem really linear. There's a really good sense of speed and momentum to it. It wasn't particularly difficult platforming. The way that the combat and the platforming worked, it is like designed in such a way where you look cool even though you're not really doing a whole lot. The only thing that I thought was kind of shitty was that every time you like open a chest, you have to come to a full stop and watch this like 3-second animation. Yeah, they should cut that out. That needs to be like removed entirely and just be like, you walk by the chest and just you kick the chest and it opens, or like you just instantly get the thing. It shouldn't stop you dead in your tracks, because otherwise everything has like a really good sense of momentum. So that was pretty cool. Rogue Lords is another thing I played. It's a turn-based style game where you are Satan and you control a bunch of like popular Fable characters. So in the demo I had Dracula and the Headless Horseman and Bloody Mary as my like 3 nefarious ne'er-do-well minions. There's like 2 things that it did that I thought were really interesting. So the first is that as you were playing, you could only use the skills that they had once before you had to use an action to recharge the skills. The action itself would do different effects depending on which character was doing it. So in that way, you actually had to think about, I'm going to use this skill and I'm not going to be able to use it again until I refresh it. With that in mind, like, how do I want to plan out my moves with knowing that knowledge and having to like plan a few turns ahead? And then the other thing that I thought was really cool is when you buy new skills, when you get 3 copies of a skill, it merges into a stronger version of that skill.
Oh, that is neat.
So it starts off as like a basic level, and then it can be like an intermediate level, and then an advanced level skill. It doesn't go any higher than the advanced level skill.
That kind of solves the problem of dupes.
Yeah, well, it was like one of those things where it was almost like drafting cards in a deck builder, because you were thinking about like, okay, which skills do I actually want to improve? Because getting multiple copies of a skill was how you upgraded it. So I thought that was actually really cool as well. It left a pretty strong impression. And then the final one that I really liked was Terra Nil, which is like a reverse city builder
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of people describing it like that, and I know I just did that. I feel like it played more like a puzzle game.
Mm-hmm, that's what I thought.
Yeah, you got like a wasteland, and you're turning it back into fertile land. So you're taking what is like a nuclear wasteland, kind of, and then returning it to nature.
Basically what Earth's going to be doing in like 200 years.
Yeah. Those were the demos that I thought were the best of the lot that I played. There's a few others that I wanted to play, but I had the big dumb and completely forgot to pick them up in the time frame that was available. So those are the ones that I played. I know that you played Terra Nil.
I did play Terra Nil. I liked that as well. I thought it was more of a puzzle game, as you've described.
Did I successfully trick you into playing Patrick's Parabox?
Yes, you did. And I did enjoy that quite a bit.
Yeah, I've been waiting for that one for over a year. I played that one in the the summer demo thing that they Steam did last year. And it has not come out yet, but I'm like, oh man, this game looked like that demo was like one of the best ones I played last year.
Yeah, no, it hook, line, and sinkered me. It's a puzzle game where you're moving blocks, but what's interesting about them is you can move those blocks into other blocks, and then there's almost like an extra layer of the puzzle. So it does a lot of neat things.
If you look at the Indie Variety Hour I did in June 2020, there's a GIF I have of the game, and that GIF perfectly summarizes what the game's about. You're moving a box around, and the box that you're moving around is the level that you're in, so you can actually see yourself outside the level, moving the level as you're moving it to where you need to go. But if you push it up against certain walls, you're able to actually enter into the level from outside of the level. It sounds very confusing, but if you play it, it makes sense. I promise.
Yes. And the thing is, you can also go in, as you said, and go into those blocks, but you can also push other blocks into those blocks if the puzzle needs that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of extra little layers involved in that, and it adds a good set of complexity to what is a simple concept.
Yeah, it's a neat little puzzle game. Was there anything else that you ended up playing?
I played Chris Tales, and I thought I was going to really enjoy that, and then the demo does not sell that experience well.
The demo's very, very bad. I thought the demo was really bad too, and it wasn't really a game that I would necessarily enjoy that much.
I think I'll be more interested in the full release later, but yeah, the demo did not do a very good job because it puts you into 3 battles at the beginning, which you said was a new addition.
Yes.
But the problem is it doesn't do anything flashy or interesting with that. It just was time your attacks. Use Z. And I'm like, I understand attacking. Fuck off. No, that's... And then it puts you into a spot where it's just here's hand-holdy story part of the game for half an hour. And I'm just I don't want to continue. It was a demo that I was just I don't know if the end is worth it. Fuck it. Never mind. I can move on to something else.
Yeah, so when I played it, it started with the hand-holdy tutorial stuff, and then it went to the battle at the end. This was back in 2019. Yeah, I thought the demo was extremely bad. It was super duper hand-holdy the entire time, and while I get that there's some times where you need to have hand-holdy type stuff, there is something to be said for letting your game speak for itself. In Rogue Lords, for example, there was some times where it's okay, do this, then do this, then do this, and they're kind of explaining how the basics of combat work, and they did that in across 2 battles. But in both cases, they're hey, do this specific thing. That's this thing. Okay, finish the battle on your own. And then by the 3rd or 4th battle, it was just it was completely hands off. And it's okay, you know how the game works now. Figure it out yourself. And I thought that was a much better approach because it's the battles, the tutorial type battles they show you are maybe 10 minutes of the 30, 45 minute demo. I feel a lot of times developers are using the tutorial segments from their games in these demos, and I think that's bad. And the reason why I think that's bad is because when you buy a game, you're already invested in playing it, so you're willing to play through a long tutorial to figure out how the game works. When you're playing a demo, you downloaded it and you have no connection to the game, so the game has fundamentally 5 to 10 minutes to leave a good impression, otherwise you're not going to finish the demo.
Case in point, me.
Yeah, I did that on a couple of demos too. There was 1 or 2 where it was a platforming type game. I fucking died and couldn't figure out what killed me in the first 10 minutes of playing, and I was okay, we're gonna just uninstall this game right away.
Other than that, I didn't really download a whole lot, and I forgot. I should go download some more demos. Oh, it's over.
I think it ended on Tuesday at noon, but yeah, it's whatever. It's but yeah, that's kind of the demo reel. So I have 2 games this week. How many do you have?
3.
I don't know
It's a rare occurrence.
Okay,
I'm the leader.
Yeah, you get to lead this week. Okay, cool. What's the first game on the docket there, Jason?
You know what? I'll start with Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. I felt like a Pokemon
That game is fucking awesome.
Yes, good. I'm glad you like it too.
I haven't played it in a really long time, but I have a lot of fond memories of that game.
Yeah, me too. Every so often I'm just like, oh, that I wanted to play a Pokemon game, but I didn't want to get like one that was too long, and I know that's like got the perfect runtime of like 30 or something hours.
Because it's like 20 to 30 hours, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's like almost no grinding in it.
Yeah, there's no grinding because there's no random encounters. It's just trainer to trainer to trainer, because it's essentially this game is just Pokemon's Coliseum, but with a story mode and a decent story mode included. The only wild Pokemon that you can catch are like Pokemon at these predetermined locations where you have to leave snacks, and then you can get a wild Pokemon. But otherwise, it's just trainers that you can fight, and then a extra little Coliseum area in one of the towns that you can kind of use to grind some experience if you want to evolve any Pokemon.
Not that you need to.
Not that you need to, yeah. One of the few games where you don't have to seriously grind. Yeah, so I was playing that. I still love the shadow Pokemon and like the snag like feature. I still really like that idea. I wish Nintendo had kind of did a little bit more with that in their later games, but they didn't.
With Gale of Darkness, the shadow mechanic was a lot more fleshed out.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is that like there's shadow Pokemon, and they had shadow moves. These always did super effective damage to non-shadow Pokemon.
And they never had any, at least with the trainers that you fight, they never have any like moves that like are a fire type for like Ponyta or something like that.
Yeah, it was they'd have nothing but like shadow moves on shadow Pokemon. And in the first game, they only have like Shadow Rush, which is a move that does recoil damage.
I never played the first one.
The first one's a fucking pain in the ass because they have recoil damage. So it's like, oh, I'm trying to weaken this Pokemon, but it keeps damaging itself. And eventually it's going to kill itself, which is a huge pain in the ass when you're trying to catch the different legendary Pokemon in that game because they have super low catch rates for some reason. But yeah, I like this one a lot better because they came with like a bunch of different types of shadow moves. So there's actually a reason to take Pokemon that were like shadow Pokemon into
these encounters.
Like have them incorporated in your team and actually use them in some of the later battles because there was actual like nuance and strategy that could be used with the different shadow type or shadow Pokemon.
Problem with the shadow Pokemon is that the fact that they won't level up, and you have to kind of open their hearts back up by partaking them in battles, or later on in this purified chamber if you surround them with other normal Pokemon. They basically want to convert you back into being normal from your emo shadow self.
Fucking side tangent for a second. That version of that is way better than the original game. It's actually feasible to convert all of the Pokemon back to like regular Pokemon in Gale of Darkness. In Pokemon Coliseum, holy shit, you had to do a ton of grinding if you wanted to convert them all back.
Yeah, I can imagine. Based off of what you were saying, it sounds like that was...
Yeah, Gale of Darkness is easily the better game of the two.
It was just like one of the few interesting things Nintendo did with Pokemon at the time. It was like really the last 3D one that they did until they did like the 3DS.
Also, funny thing, Game Freak did not develop those games.
I saw that. It was Genius Sonority or something like that.
Yeah, and the animations in those games are the best that Pokemon animations have ever looked.
I was just thinking that. I'm like, why these animations look so much better? And I know like it's part of the thing is it's like this game has way less of a catalog of Pokemon to deal with. I mean, in this game, I'm thinking about fairy types. And I'm like, that's not a fairy type at the moment. That's just psychic, like Ralts or something like that. I'm like,
oh yeah, because
I have to think like, wait, that's not that anymore. God damn it! So I've used the wrong move before, or thought like, wait, that was supposed to be critical. No.
It's very funny how this company has put out like fundamentally like one of the best looking 3D Pokemon games, and Game Freak has never been able to one up it with their own efforts, even remotely. Although I think the characters all look like shit, but the Pokemon look awesome. So
yeah, the Pokemon look good.
For my money, that's where the money should have gone, and it looks like it did.
I think even the animations of like the characters losing are better.
Oh yeah, they are. The characters are animated fine. I just think they all look stupid.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
They all look like really flat-faced anime characters. Your main character has like a fucking like a dewdrop for his nose, and it's so flat. It's fucking stupid looking. Or Chobin. Fucking Chobin. Jesus Christ. That guy's a little walking chode.
Yeah.
I do like the Mecha Groudon, though. That thing is fucking cool. Even though it's like, I'm bringing out the Mecha Groudon. It's like, okay, but how does that help you fight with Pokemon better? It's just a mech suit that you're riding in.
I could kill this child. No, wait, you can't do that.
Yeah, as a 12-year-old, I'm like, I didn't think about this, but then I got older and I think about this, and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes no sense.
I love how they steal, I guess, spoil, whatever. It's an old ass game. They steal
It's
the
a
professor.
fucking, like, 15-year-old game.
They steal the professor, and then they're like, oh, if you want to save him, you gotta battle me. And I'm like, you've clearly Armstrong him, so what's your problem with just punching me out?
Yeah.
Pokemon World is weird.
Pokemon World is weird. You got, like, this, like, 10-year-old boy. He's, like, this gangly-ass motherfucker with a weird-looking nose.
He just has strong Pokemon, and he's just like, I'm able to bully the adults into submission.
Yeah, exactly. You got this, like, crime syndicate, and they're just getting owned by, like, this 10-year-old who's just running around stealing their shadow Pokemon and shit, and it's like, what the fuck? How?
My challenge this run is to catch all of them without killing a single shadow Pokemon, which isn't that hard, but...
That's not super hard to do, but in the event that you do, Mirror Bee will pick it up, and then you get to see
No,
Mirror
I know.
Bee, which is always a treat.
Yeah.
He's the best boss in the first game, and he's so well liked they brought him back in the second game.
I know, I've caught all of them in before when I played it the first time, yeah. I just made a challenge for myself.
Okay, well, for people who have never seen this game before and don't know what Mirror Bee is, just look up fucking Mirror Bee on YouTube. Actually, no, I'll include a link in the, to, like, Mirror Bee and, like, the Mirror Bee theme. He's like this androgynous disco man. His entire design does not fit this world at all, and it's hilarious. And he has an army of Ludicolo, which is part of what propagated Ludicolo as being like this huge fucking meme.
Yeah, no, he's great. So yeah, playing that. I think I'm about halfway through.
Oh, that's the other thing we didn't mention. Part of what makes this game so unique is that the entire game is played with double battles.
Oh yes, yeah. Good point.
Which is a big part of why it, like, how it distinguishes itself so significantly from, like, mainline Pokemon games, is you had to develop and think about strategies based on double battling, which is, like, a feature that is almost never prominently featured in any mainline Pokemon games. I feel like Sword and Shield was probably the only other game that had, like, a pretty regular amount of double battles. Generation 3 has a handful of them, but they're all, like, gimmick side fights that you only partake in, like, once in a blue moon.
Yeah, and they're really easy.
Yeah, I really liked how this entire game is built around double battling. There's like a lot of strategic depth that comes from having to think about battles when you can, like, every turn, one of your Pokemon can effectively be double teamed. That, like, really changes what types of moves you prioritize, which Pokemon you actually bring along. Because, like, if you bring a glass cannon along, you have to make sure that they can be supported properly. Because if they can't, they'll just get deleted before they can do anything.
I hope this company apparently still has a chance to make one of the better Pokemon games. They are still apparently around, and they've made Pokemon Cafe as their last game. But I'm kind of hoping maybe Nintendo will eventually give them some sort of ability to make another Colosseum-like game on the Switch or whatever comes next.
Mm-hmm.
I really hope, because like I was just like, yeah, restarted this, and I'm like, this is one of the better Pokemon games I've played.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
Anyway, with that, which one do you want to do?
So I played Griftlands. It's a card battling RPG roguelike.
I'm so surprised.
From Clay Entertainment, one of the best indie developers out of Canada.
Oh, cool.
In it, there are 3 different story-based campaigns where you follow a particular story of a character while you explore the Griftlands, which is basically just like the way that they've kind of built up the world. It's like very like much like a dystopian space type feature, so there's like aliens and shit running all over the place, and like a corporation and like the government and military kind of shit is what runs everything, and no one likes it, and everyone's poor and everyone's hateful, and people are killing each other all over the place. It does a couple of unique things in the card battler space. First and foremost is the fact that it leans really heavily on that RPG side of things. Instead of it being like in Slay the Spire or Monster Train, where it's just kind of like make a few decisions and then go to the next battle. In this, you're actually going through like story events where you're reading text and you're making decisions about things, and how you, like what decisions you choose to make can sometimes give you extra cards, and sometimes they can change your relationship with characters. And if characters love you, then you get like passive bonuses, but if characters hate you, you get negative passive bonuses. In that way, like a lot of the decisions you end up making throughout your campaign feel like the kind of long-standing RPG sort of decisions that you can make in like some of the better role-playing games.
So there's kind of like an overworld of some sort, or?
Yeah, fundamentally, and at any given time, you're given like the choice between 1 or 3 different quests, and depending on which ones you do, some people will like you, some people will hate you, depending on how you choose to solve them. So maybe some people you'll win favor with them, some people you'll piss off. In my first run through, I killed so many people that I started getting debuff cards in my negotiation deck because people knew I had a penchant for killing people. That's like one of the other things, is that instead of having a deck just focused on combat, you actually have a deck for combat and a deck for negotiations. So fundamentally, the negotiations play no different than the combat. There's like defensive cards, there's offensive cards, there's like status cards that help boost the power of things. It's like a little bit different, but it's fundamentally the same as the combat. But I liked that because so many times in RPGs, passing a persuasion check means skipping gameplay. Right? Like, it's like, oh, I can persuade you to not fight me. And then it's like, oh, that's just it. You like don't have to do this thing then. It's like, okay, why is this skipping gameplay? So by making the negotiations play out like a card battle, they have at least fixed that issue where you're always, depending on, like, you can either negotiate with people or you can like just run into combat with them. And either option is actually gameplay instead of one of the options entirely bypassing gameplay, which I thought was a really smart solution to what I think is a pretty common problem in the role-playing game space. Although it would have been nice if the negotiations actually had some like very big functional differences. There is like some minor nuance-based stuff that was different about it, but it's functionally the same as just going in and doing combat. But like in general, I liked what Griftlands is doing. It's just there's kind of like 2 major problems I have with it. The first is that the campaigns are fucking long. For a roguelike.
You've had that problem before.
Yeah, what was Star Renegades, right?
Yeah,
like,
that was it.
I was playing that and I really liked it, but like I just did not have the patience to keep playing it because the runs were like 5 hours long. And it's the same thing in here. Like the runs are like 5 hours long. So like when you get really far through one and then you die, you're kind of like, oh, I don't want to fucking redo all of that shit. At least with Star Renegades, it was so mechanically focused that it was kind of like, oh, that's like really on me. But with this, it's like there's a lot of decision making and a lot of like storytelling that happens between the combative, or I guess I'll say the card battle type spots. For me, it kind of left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth because a lot of the best RPGs I've played, when you fail, that will lead to like interesting consequences that you have to play around moving forward. And in this, you just die and lose the run and you have to start over, which is kind of like, oh, that's kind of shitty. Yeah, you can like fail negotiations and that will let you continue to do stuff. But if you fail combat, you are fucking dead. And that's the second problem I have with this game, is that combat is extremely overemphasized. Despite having a negotiation deck, you 100% of the time need to spend more time upgrading your combat deck, which means you have to spend a lot of time doing confrontations, even if you want to play like a silver-tongued assassin who fucking like talks their way through a bunch of stuff to get to their target and only takes their target out, which is what I was doing in my second campaign through, and I ended up losing because eventually I hit a point where I had to do combat and there was no other options, and my combat deck was like not even remotely fleshed out enough to do anything.
Oops.
So the only way to upgrade cards in this game is to use them. So you have to use your deck to increase the power of your cards, and that's the only way you can get card drops for your deck as well. Because you know you're going to have to do combat at some point, because you just like, it's not an option. All of the boss fights in the game, you have to do combat. Because of that, you don't have a very good incentive to use your negotiations. And the fact that I was actually not using negotiations very much in my first run
was beneficial.
Yeah, it was very advantageous to me, and I didn't realize that. But I kept doing really well, and I fucking destroyed the final boss because I had a really, like, my fucking whole deck, my whole combat deck was, like, fully upgraded, so I just fucking destroyed her. In my second run, I was trying to do more negotiation style stuff, and in the first day, so like the first 25% of the campaign, I got through the entire day up to the boss without ever doing combat. And so I got to the boss with like an entirely unupgraded deck that had no extra combat cards in it. And I almost lost that fight. I was so far on the back foot at that point. I continued to play that campaign, but by about the
Yeah, it was fucked. Sounds like it.
yeah, by the third of the 4 days, my combat deck being a piece of shit finally caught up to me because I still didn't even like. It was like hard to do combat because I'm like, well, I'm like my character's like not proficient at combat, and I was so far behind that I never actually ended up being able to catch up. So that was kind of frustrating. So like the fact that it's just like it's designed in such a way where combat's like really overemphasized to the point where it's like, it's like you shouldn't maybe do negotiations for a lot of things, even if like the RPG implications of it are more in line with what you think your character would do, or they have like more benefits to your campaign because you need to upgrade your combat deck, and the only way to do that is to use your combat deck.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate you can't like bribe the boss or something like that.
Sometimes you can do stuff with them to like weaken them or give you like a first turn advantage.
That doesn't matter. And
that doesn't matter when your deck is so weak that you can't actually sustain through like a couple of turns to actually beat a boss.
Yeah.
And then like to that end, one of the things that I thought was a little bit unfortunate as far as the actual deck building goes was, so I guess for instance, I'll talk about Sal. She's the first character. She has kind of like 3 major combat styles you can invest in. It became very obvious what those 3 styles were. So like one was you could get a bunch of cards that had bleed effect on them. Another one were cards that had a stacking buff called combo. And then I forget what the third one was. With how the different like effects work, for instance, combo, every time you play a combo card, it increases your combo counter until you use a finisher card, and then it does damage based on your combo count. So because of that, if you're making a combo deck, it doesn't make sense to draft anything besides more combo cards. Like just because they have immediate hard synergies with one another. The game has so many hard synergies with a lot of the cards that you'll know exactly what cards to draft because there's like, it's just like, I'm just going to draft more of the thing that I already have because they work together. So it didn't feel like there was a lot of synergies to discover. Like in like Slay the Spire, figuring out what like the relationship between the cards is a little bit more muddy. So that's like part of like figuring out how like what cards worked really well together with one another. And in Monster Train, there is like an even greater level of depth to that. With this, it felt like there was just like, you look at the cards and you're immediately like, okay, this card works with this because it has the same effect on it. And the way that the effects work in this game, you just keep stacking them over and over and over and over and over again. Like that's the only way to play. I actually kind of found the combat, or like it's like the card drafting portion of the game really boring in that regard because it was just like, I know exactly what I need because I just need more of the thing I already have. Does that make sense? I don't know if I explained that really well.
No, I think it made sense.
Okay. It's like an interesting game. I think that what it tries to do in the card battler roguelike space is admirable. I feel like if I hadn't played Slay the Spire before playing this game, I would have liked it a lot more. But because I played Slay the Spire and then subsequently played Monster Train, I feel like I've played games that have more of the kinds of gameplay challenges that I appreciate in them. This didn't really offer that to me, so...
This was kind of a one and done.
It's fine. I played through like some of the campaigns in it, and I was kind of like, I've seen what this game has to offer. I think I'm good.
I mean, you told me that you didn't even start the third one.
I started it, but I found that character's particular cards to be really fucking annoying, so I didn't want to play through an entire 5-hour campaign with a combat deck that I found really irritating to play. The character in question has cards where almost all of their powerful cards did damage to themselves, but they had a mechanic where, based on the amount of damage they did to themselves, they'd recover some damage every turn. But I just found that whole balance to be just really annoying, and I'm like, I don't want to have any part in this. This is stupid. In the 10-ish hours I played the game, it didn't do enough to convince me to keep playing through it. That and like the story in the third campaign was very similar to the story in the first campaign, so they're both revenge stories. So yeah, I was kind of like, I don't really need to keep playing this. Especially after I wrote that article where I'm like, I should like stop forcing myself to play fucking shit if I'm not enjoying it. So...
Man, that's 3 plugs this episode.
So that, we will move on to your next game.
Alright. In true Frosty Canucks fashion, we're going to end on the worst game, so move on to CrossCode.
What?
It's not the worst game. We end on the worst game.
Oh, right. The
You said
third, the second game, right.
You're like,
sorry, I had
you son of a bitch, what did you say about CrossCode?
Yeah, I was about to fucking fly through your computer and just ground you. Holy shit.
Homer Simpson style?
Yeah, exactly. I had a massive fucking brain fart there.
I might not have worded that right. Anyway, CrossCode. Yeah, I really like this game. It's one that Frosty's been encouraging multiple people, including myself and Adventure Rules, to play.
I'm only getting after you guys because I think you will like it.
And that is true. I did enjoy it quite a bit. So this game is set in an MMO kind of setting, except it's all single player. So it's actually scratching that itch that I was having to play a multiplayer game. But I don't want to get invested in that because that's, to me, an MMO. I usually just don't have the patience or the time. So this is kind of, yeah, as I said, scratching that itch. Combat is a lot of fun. So you have your melee attacks and then you have your ranged attacks. And it's an action RPG with a lot of puzzles. There are a lot of puzzles in that game.
I feel like the fact that it was an action RPG is the only reason I didn't immediately find it super irritating to play.
Yeah, probably. I thought, yeah, okay, this is why. It's not turn-based.
Well, it's like you say that, but it's like I played a shitload of turn-based games. It's just the turn-based games I play require me to use my brain. Yeah, no, it's got a ton of puzzles. Like, all the dungeons, would you say it's a fair comparison to compare the dungeons in this game to, like, Zelda dungeons?
Yeah, no, I was getting vibes like that. Sometimes
It's not exactly the same thing, but
No.
it's kind of, it's got the same kind of the cadence where it's like you get
a power-up.
you get a power-up and then a bunch of puzzles are built around that power-up, so.
Mm-hmm. Or stuff that you were doing is a lot easier to do now that you've got that power-up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. I am currently at what I expect is the last chapter, minus that epilogue that's not available on consoles yet. Literally, I picked it up. Meh. Anyway.
So you're at the wave and the lightning temple?
Oh no, I'm past that. I'm at the...
Oh, okay, never mind. Yeah, no, I know where you are. Don't for spoiler reasons. I know where you are.
Yeah. What I find interesting is that this game, like some of the other games, it doesn't have like a difficulty mode, but it does have the ability to assist the player with kind of setting their own difficulty with a damage output of the enemies. I think you can lower that to 50%, and then their attack frequency you can lower to 20. And if you aren't good at puzzles, or if you're having trouble with a certain puzzle, you have the ability to lower the speed of the puzzle itself as well.
Yeah, because there are a few puzzles in there that are a little bit reflex-based.
Yes, I think I had, I knew the solution to one puzzle, but I was just like, I don't have the patience for this, and I turned it down and I solved it, but I put it back up afterwards.
Was it one of the wave-based puzzles?
I think so.
Yeah, I think I know what one you're talking about, and that one took me like a couple tries to actually get the sequence of events correct for it, because I was like, I know what I need to do, I just keep fucking it up.
Yeah, exactly. I knew what the solution was, and I'm just like, come on. If I'm having difficulty with just getting a little bit of the timing right, I'm just going to lower it down. I think I lowered it down like 2 notches to 80%, and I solved it after that, and I cranked it back up afterwards.
I'm not entirely sure if that existed when I played it on PC, but if it did, I was probably too prideful to use it anyway.
I don't really care. I knew what the solution was. I haven't turned down the combat. That's really good. Though I am bad at defending, and I had to learn that.
Oh, you don't have to defend. You just fucking dash out of the way. It's fine. Or you just
when
lock people in, or you just stun lock people. It's fine.
Yeah, maybe.
How did you find the story overall?
Yeah, I find it really good. So you play as a character named Leah. She gets into this game and she's unable to talk, so throughout the adventure, she's the mute protagonist. Except, unlike most mute protagonists, she actually has some characteristics.
She emotes? Yeah.
She emotes. Her character sprite has a lot of different, she's got, a big range of, emotions that she can show through those sprites.
Yeah, so that's kind of one of the things after my buddy Keith, shout out to Keith, I think he does listen to the podcast. After he finished the game, we were talking about it, and we kind of laughed because across the entire game, she learns maybe 10 words.
Yes.
So she can talk in
roughly.
with 10 words roughly. But she manages to have more character than most RPG protagonists who have, or not even just protagonists, but most RPG characters who have access to a full
dialogue
range
tree,
of speech.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because she actually, instead of having these fucking, robot faces and, delivering with these deadpan shithead deliveries, her character sprite has a ton of emotion, and it's so they emote a lot of the time, which is how fucking, 70% of human communication is through nonverbal stuff?
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that it's the developers rely a lot, like a lot on using Leah's expression, showing the player her expression during conversations helps to communicate everything it needs to, and it makes her a really endearing character, even though she can only say like fucking 10 words.
Exactly. I love her smug face.
Oh god, her smug face is it's
perfect.
Yeah, it's a real good. But yeah, it's amazing to me how this character ends up having so much character despite the fact that she can barely talk.
Mm-hmm.
You get a really good sense of who Leah is by the time you're done, like by the time the credits roll in the game.
I do love when the words get introduced, though. Sometimes they're just like, the perfect opportunity, or, oh, you asshole, now I have this?
Yeah.
I do find that funny.
There is spoilery reasons for why that happens, but we're not going to talk about them. Just go play CrossCode. It's a great game. It's one of the only RPGs I'd recommend for people to play.
It's like $15 to $20, roughly. Good game.
Yeah.
I do enjoy the boss design.
Oh, yeah.
It's always challenging enough.
Without being overbearing.
Yeah. There's always the ability to heal. There's always a break in their combat, which is nice, and their moves. And if you defeat a certain wave, their pattern changes, and then you also get a bit of a heal.
Mm-hmm.
I was originally trying to get through most of the game without using healing items, and then I learned quickly that was probably not going to happen.
Yeah, they're in there. You should use them all there because they're there, right?
Yeah, but I was treating this like a JRPG where you keep the elixirs and you're like, this is the final boss. I'm not using the elixir.
Yeah, I don't do that. I don't like having items that I don't use because it takes up trouser space. The thing my trousers have room for is my dick.
Ayo.
Who's your favorite character who's not Leah?
I really like Amelia.
Amelia was my favorite as well. She actually reminded me a lot of a friend who I used to have when I was playing MapleStory.
I just find it funny that I guess I shouldn't say that because of spoilers. I won't. Anyway, that's all I have to talk about. CrossCode. Really good game. You should give that a try.
You should. Now it's not just me who's badgering you. Jason is too. It's Frosty Canucks approved. Both of us think it's good.
Seal of approval.
I guess that's my turn now. Yeah, so Mini Metro. So from the Palestine Relief Bundle,
that's where this is from.
Yep, I downloaded Mini Metro. It's a game that came out a few years ago. It's a minimalist puzzle game about creating metroways. They use like shapes to represent the different metro stops, and then you have to connect the lines such that people can always get to this, like the shapes that appear at the different stops can always get to the shapes they want to. So every single map starts with a triangle, a square, and a circle station, and you have 3 lines and 3 trams that you can set up on those lines. So as soon as you set up a line, it automatically puts a tram onto the line if you have one available. So like you'll connect all 3 of those to start off, and then when that happens, if somebody shows up at the circle station and they want to go to like the square station, then they'll get on the train, and then the train will eventually take them to the square station. And then after you get past a week, you get to choose an upgrade. So you can choose like a new line, or you can choose to increase the space at a station, or you can choose to have more trams. The problem that comes up is that you'll have a bunch of these stations coming up, and you'll never have quite enough resources to address everything. So the game's puzzles are based around logistics. So you had to figure out, how do I take what I have available, like the number of carts I have available, the number of lines I have available, the number of like upgrades and shit I have available, and how do I connect all of these different stations up using those resources so that everyone can get everywhere in an acceptable amount of time and no one station gets overloaded. As your days go by, you get a higher and higher score. I thought it was a really, really neat game. Surprisingly, with that very simple structure, they actually managed to sprinkle in quite a few mechanics that lead to a little bit of diversity across the entirety of the maps. All of them are based on real world areas, and in some cases, I think there's one that was like based in Japan, and it was like Osakawa region, and it had like a shitload of water in it. So you had to like make sure you had bridges to connect up stuff, but you don't have enough bridges. So then it's like, oh, like the perfect routes to connect everything up with, I can't use those because I don't have enough bridges for them. So instead I had to come up with like another way with what I do have available to connect up the routes in such a way that they actually work. I think it's only got like 25 or 30 maps, but in that time across those maps, each kind of map manages to feel like a little bit distinct. There's a few that are a little bit homogenous, but there's like some of them stand out really, really well. The San Francisco one, it gives you a shitload of bridges until it stops giving you a shitload of bridges. And then it's like, then you're like, okay, how do I make this work? Because there's a lot of water here as well. One of the things that I think is really unique about it, though, is that you get to determine when you're done. So this is part of why I wrote that article. This is kind of like what was the tipping point that sort of sent me over the edge with what I was thinking about with regard to like the struggling to start article was when you go in, the only goals the game gives you is that like to unlock some of the later levels, you need to get a score of 500 on particular levels. And doing that is not very difficult in a lot of cases. So most of the time, as you're playing it, you get to decide when you're satisfied with the score you've earned and then move on to the next level. If you are playing a level and you're like, wow, I find this level kind of annoying, you just kind of like barely cross over that 500 threshold and unlock the next couple of levels, then you can go, okay, fuck this. I just kind of piss off from that level and then go play other levels instead. Some of the levels that you find them really enjoyable, you can play them and try and get like really high scores on them. Zachtronic games do it quite well as well, where instead of like imposing on the player some kind of preordained, like here's how you need to do a thing, they just kind of give you like, here's what the problem is, and then they kind of let you determine when you're done. In a lot of Zachtronic games, you're usually given open-ended puzzles, and you can create the solution however you want, and then you can decide if your solution is good enough or if you want to tweak it and try and make it work in different parameters. So in a lot of their games, there's like a chart at the end that will show like how efficient your machine was in terms of operations, how efficient your machine was in terms of resources, and how efficient your machine was in terms of something else. Depends on the game what the final resource will be, but so it'll be like if you program something and it only goes through like 3 iterations of the code you wrote to deliver the specified output, right? Then it'll be like really efficient in the number of steps that it took, potentially. So you can decide kind of what criteria matters the most to you, and you're kind of in control of when you think you're done with the game. I'm very badly wording this, but like... That's what I thought was really interesting about this game. I would appreciate seeing more kind of games offer that sort of, instead of it being like, oh, you're only done when you're done, being like, okay, well, like, you get to decide kind of when you're done with this level. Because there's like a very loose, easy to achieve goal, and then there's like extra things that you can, as a player, if you're particularly motivated to seek out those extra goals, you can decide what those goals are and then work toward them. Because chances are, if you're deciding what objectives you actually want to meet, you're going to be a lot more motivated to actually meet them. It's kind of like how the whole reason why I enjoy roguelikes, or at least one of the roguelikes that I get really into, when I end up playing them for as long as I do, it's because I've decided that there's like things about them that I want to master over repeated playing them. The same kind of thing goes for fighting games. Like, I'm the one who's setting the goals, right? So instead of the game telling me like, oh, hey, do these things. It's like the difference between like making and playing a challenge run in a game versus like doing a set of achievements for a platinum trophy, I guess is kind of like what I'm getting at.
You calling me out?
No, but if you want to take personal offense to it, you can.
I will.
Okay. Fucking, I don't care.
Fair enough. No, I get what you mean.
Yeah. It's a neat little puzzle game. If you picked up the Palestine Relief Bundle, give it a go. Yeah, because you have it. And if you didn't pick up the Palestine Relief Bundle, I believe this episode will go out while Steam sale's still going, and I believe it's on sale for like probably like 75% off. It's a cheap game. It's one worth checking out, if what I just said sounds interesting to you. All right, on to the bad game. What do you got for me, Jason?
Yay! In true Frosty Canucks fashion, at least for the last few episodes.
We're ending on a downer.
On a downer. Yeah. Mafia, Definitive Edition.
Oh, fuck, I knew this was coming. How did I forget?
How did you forget?
I don't know.
It was one of the few things I've ever been like, this has motivated me to tweet this out, because I'm frustrated.
Yeah, you were so angry about it, you tweeted out about it, which I thought was really funny.
I hummed and hawed about posting that, but I'm glad
That's
I
fine.
did.
You can bitch about things on Twitter. No one's going to give you shit for it.
It'll go into the void.
Never feel bad about the stuff you post on Twitter. Like, most of the time whenever I post negative stuff on Twitter, most people just actually ignore it, so it's only the positive stuff that usually gets picked up by people, so...
Anyway, we'll start with what I think is the positives and then go to the negatives. So, it is an open world set in this fictitious town. What I like about it is that it's very focused on the story, so you're going from chapter to chapter, mission to mission. There is no kind of like in between where it's like, go here just to start the chapter or the mission. Like, when you start the mission, it will be like, okay, you have to go here, but you're already starting the mission. So there's no real fluff really in between, which is the biggest problem of a lot of the open world games.
Mm-hmm.
So I really thought that was kind of well done. The story was engaging enough where I actually cared. So in my first playthrough, I was on normal. And there's the stuff that you can toggle on and off. Like you could toggle the driving from simulation to sort of more of an arcadey one, which is what I did, or what it actually defaulted to.
You're not much of a sim driver guy, right? You're more
I'm not.
arcade.
I've tried Gran Turismo 5, and I didn't enjoy it, so not my cup of tea.
Yeah, I'm not much of a driving guy either, but when I do, it's usually arcade racers. I'm not huge on actually driving, so...
Yeah, not realistic driving. You don't even have a license.
No, I don't. I do know how to drive, I just don't have a license. I used to know how to drive. It's one of those things where I didn't practice it at all, so I just didn't finish getting going through the graduated license thing, so I'm like, well, by the time if I do get the license, if I do pass the test, I'm going to drive so infrequently that I'd actually be dangerous to be on the road. So I felt like that would be socially irresponsible of me to have a license.
That and you're saving money. You don't have to.
Yeah, cars
pay
are
for the
expensive. They're stupid.
No, I'm not just the license.
Yeah, well, we get. I don't know about if this is the same in the rest of the world, but I swear to God, in North America, cars are like the biggest fucking trap for stealing money from people. Like, they cost a shitload of money. They need to be maintained constantly because they have a bunch of dumb, broken mechanical parts in them. You gotta pay for the license fees. You gotta pay for insurance. All this stupid bullshit. It's getting nickeled and dimed left, right, and center.
Yeah.
Anyway. Mafia.
Mafia.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I thought the combat was good. I thought the arcade-like driving was fine. It was a little clumsy because it is set in like the 1930s, so the cars like.
So you're driving at like 30 kilometers an hour?
No, but like if you were braking, the brakes are pretty shitty. Like
Okay.
Swerving is kind of a little off. At least on normal, these cops are the most relaxed people on the planet. You will fucking commit a crime, someone will report it, like you'll steal a car, and they'll come to the scene, and they won't be able to chase you enough. So I was...
It's just like real life.
So realistic.
Fucking, you report the crimes, the police officers just kind of shrug their shoulders and tell you to leave.
But how do I get back? I don't know. So those are most of the positives. We're going to get into the negatives.
Everything else.
It has a mode afterwards when you're done well, actually you could play it before, but we'll just for simplicity say it after, where it's basically free play. There's not a whole lot to do in Mafia in between doing the collectibles. That's it. There's not really a purpose for this open world. It works for the missions. That's about it.
Correct me if I'm misspeaking here, but this game, it came out around the same time that Grand Theft Auto 3 did, yeah?
It came out in 2002.
Okay, so yeah, this is when, and Grand Theft Auto 3 came out in 2001, yeah?
The definitive edition is from last year, but...
Well, yeah, I mean, like, they obviously didn't add a whole lot to it, but I was thinking, like, back when the game first released, this is when technology started to allow for open world design. And because the technology finally allowed for games to be built that way, developers started building everything that way because, technology is easy to advertise.
True.
So instead of thinking about, like, does this game need to be open world? Who cares? We're going to make it open world because that will be a huge technical achievement.
Yeah, and that trend just keeps going.
Yeah, that trend never really stopped going. Much to my dismay.
Exactly. The Steam had one sale, and I think it was like all about open worlds. And
yeah, I just kind of like rolled my eyes and turned my fucking nose up to it.
You're just like, this does not want. I don't want this to exist.
To be fair, there's a bunch of games in that were like not conventional open worlds, but like Hollow Knight was on sale in that.
That's confusing.
Anyway.
But classic defaults your driving to simulation mode, which you can't unset it. Is glued to that.
So you had to do the simulation driving the entire time.
You have to do the simulation driving, which is fine for the most part, but you can't skip this race. So one weird addition was there's an option, and you can still do it in classic mode, but you can skip the driving if they think it's non-essential to the story, like you're not escaping the police. So if you're going from point A to point B, and it's just like the characters talking in the car, giving some more backstory, you could just skip that entirely, which actually speeds up a lot of the missions, and I think almost kind of makes them better on like a second playthrough. because you're going straight to the combat or straight to the mission. So it works out a lot better.
Yeah, you're not fucking around with any of the bullshit. You just go straight to the meat and potatoes, right? You've already seen the story, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. So I like that. But this race is apparently very notorious for ruining people's runs of the game.
Yes, it is.
Because you have to place first in the race. You're in 16th place at the beginning. And apparently, at least in the definitive edition, it's set up so that if, like, let's say you're in the third position, that car will crash. But if you're farther in the back or in first place, that thing doesn't happen. So you don't get... There's some scripted bullshit in the middle, too.
What?
That's, like, conditional on what your place is in the race. And that can kind of ruin your run. There are times where I'm going at full speed and I'm getting passed by the other cars. I don't think this is like a rubber banding issue. I just think it's
I was gonna say, it's not even
poorly
rubber banding
designed.
at that point. Like, what the hell?
Exactly. It's just like I can't get ahead, and your race car handles like shit. So
why are you racing as a mafioso?
The story point is essentially your boss, the Don, has bet a lot on this guy, and then the other big Don in the area, your antagonist, he's hired someone from another city, from Europe or something like that, and he's got a way better car, and you sabotage his car, but then the other Don has the smart idea to just, fuck up the driver. So you're the best other driver we know. We don't know anyone else, so partake in this race and get first place, or I'm gonna fucking kill you, pretty much. That's pretty much the reason you have to get first place. If you get any other position, the game says retry.
Huh.
It's frustrating. I think I tried 10 times to get through the first lap, and I was in a decent position. I was struggling with that. I think my best was 4th place, and then the second lap went poorly, so I stopped that run, because as soon as you make one mistake in this run, you're fucked. Your run is fucked.
Jesus Christ.
And I feel like the other cars are on arcade mode, so it's really unfair.
They're just controlled by AI, so they just don't follow the same rules as you.
Exactly. I have to understand the simulation driving, but they know how it works, so it feels like they're kind of arcadey.
They're cheating, that tells you.
I think that was on the weekend, and then I just stopped playing it entirely. I don't know if...
So it's the only reason you're doing this for the fucking platinum trophy?
Yes, and I might just stop.
Alright.
Then I wanted to try the harder difficulty. I just didn't know about this.
I did, but
bullshit.
That's because other Thomas, he wouldn't like being called other Thomas, but Thomas A instead of Thomas 1. Actually, I shouldn't say that, because the other Thomas's name is actually...
Oh my fucking god.
No, I said so Thomas 1 instead of Thomas A. Bitched and complained so much about this when he was playing because I think he was playing on a harder difficulty when he played the remaster last year. And there's a thing in the support role, the blogger Discord, where he just fucking bitched for days about it. And I think he even bitched to me directly afterwards, this is so dumb. I hate this. Ugh.
I agree.
He was very frustrated by it. He thought it was dumb. Small PP, no tendies. It is just real bullshit.
You should be able to skip it.
Yeah. Really.
If you don't like racing games, it's advertised as a fucking racing game.
Well, that's just it. It's very strange to me that there's simulation driving in a game where it's how much other fucking simulation driving do you have to do? And it's none.
Just between points and escaping cops.
Well, how much of the gameplay is that?
Not a lot. The percentage-wise, not a lot. I feel like there's more cutscenes than there are driving segments that are forced.
Oh, well then.
It's just a bad design, and they unfortunately kept it in.
Yeah, well...
Didn't tone it down enough for classic. Apparently they toned it down for normal, because on normal I had no problem finishing it my first try. I was crashing a little bit, but it was fine. But on classic, if you get one crash, it's you have to speed up like a normal car would back then. So, blech.
So bullshit, and it's bad for you.
Game developers just don't have realistic driving. Fuck off.
Unless that's the hook of the game, right?
Unless that's Gran Turismo.
Where it's a simulation game, that's the fucking selling factor, yeah.
In that case, it's fine. Other games just make it arcadey. That's what people want.
You know what my favorite feature about Mafia Definitive Edition is? Is that the text is less readable than the original Mafia.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's funny. I have a big screen, so I didn't notice that, but that's funny.
Yeah, there's in a Game Maker's Toolkit video by Mark Brown, he references it and he shows them side by side, and he's like, and Mafia Definitive Edition actually has less readable text than the original game. And he shows it side by side, and it's like, oh my god, that's actually true. Like, in the original game, it's like just like the fact that they had shittier hard contrast ends up making the text a lot more readable, and they used they used like impact font instead of some like other bullshit. So it ends up being like bigger and a lot more readable because there's a higher contrast with it.
That's hilarious. I didn't even pick up on that, but
You wouldn't if you haven't played the original, but it's like, that's okay, sure.
well, I mean, like
good
in
job,
general,
guys.
I thought the size was fine, but I don't have that kind of problem, and I also have like a 60-inch screen.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a lot easier to notice text size problems when you're not playing on a massive television.
Yeah.
So I notice text size problems a lot more because I'm using 28-inch screens. Or not even. I think these are 26-inch screens actually.
Yeah. I mean, I get your point. Yeah, you have like the smaller the screen is,
Yeah.
the more noticeable that's gonna be.
And you really notice it if you're playing on a fucking Switch when it's in handheld mode. Holy
Yeah, no kidding.
shitballs! If you haven't you'll immediately notice text problems on a Switch. It's actually crazy how easy it is to see them on that because of how small the screen real estate is.
Yeah, no kidding. That's it for the negatives. And with that, that is the end of our show this week. Thank you all for joining us. You can follow this podcast on Twitter at the Frosty Canucks or wherever this podcast is available, such as Anchor, Stitcher,
Spoofy.
or Spot. Yeah, oh my god, I blanked on that. Bleh. Anyway, you can follow myself at Javim Animation. That's JAVM Animation on Twitter. Currently, I'm just kind of practicing my art to get it a little bit up to snuff. And your stuff.
So you can follow me on Twitter at FrostyLight. That is where everything goes if you want to know about anything that's going on. If you just want to see the art, you can go to FrostyLight on Instagram. I haven't been doing any artwork recently, but you can check out the stuff I've done previously there. And then for articles, you can go to frostylight.ca. By the time this is up, I hope that I have that post that I wanted to do about video game timers finally done. I would advertise Twitch, but I haven't been doing streaming for the last several weeks, so never mind. But that's Frosty Light as well. I don't know. Go read my blog.
Thanks for joining us this week, and stay frosty.